Good evening. It's been a little while. It's been a couple weeks since we've done our broadcast, and I hope you're ready. Let me tell you what, I'm ready. All right. I was on the road, had some college training camps going on, NCAA coaching camps going on. Spoke at the National High School Coaching Conference at the PGA show. So man, it's been crazy. Got some time now to knock out a good show. Then we're back on the road again, conducting our camps. So thanks for tuning in. We got a cool show. So let's get started. So this is a fact, okay, is that nothing will change unless you change yourself first. And it's hard to digest that, especially for younger athletes, right? And in this broadcast, I'm going to share with you how you can take steps to change a piece of you that will change your training and performance forever. How about that stuff, huh? So if you've never met me before, I'm Sean Humphreys. I'm a high performance coach. I specialize in changing performance in individuals, whether you're a highly skilled athlete or you're on your way to being one, or you just want to improve your performance. You're in the right place, all right? Thanks for tuning in. Also, too, if you don't mind, give me a little thumbs up of where you guys are at. I really like seeing what state that we're broadcasting to and around the country and around the world. Met some great international people at the PGA show, and I know they're excited about seeing these broadcasts and sharing EPS. Great thing is, make sure you ask some questions, because I'll make sure that I'll fill those on our rebroadcast, and you can catch this broadcast here also on our YouTube channel at Sean Humphreys. So let's kind of dive into this. So nothing's going to change unless you change yourself. And that's pretty much it. But here's the challenging piece, right? Is that change is difficult, all right? It's a challenge to face. We know that. Most of us think we're pretty good the way we are, and we kind of resist change. I see that a lot with the athletes that I work with, and it's also the profile of the athlete too, because a lot of the young athletes are cautious. They're cautious decision makers, but they're highly innovative and highly smart, but they're just cautious. And besides, it's easier for us to place the burden or change on someone else, then it's no longer our problem, right? We see that a lot. So change takes time, it takes commitment, it takes perseverance to even begin that piece. And the piece that we're going to dive in tonight to talk about, and we have on a lot of episodes here, is the self-image, but we're going to dive into it just purely from tonight's talk only, right? So the self-image resists change. And if you watched our previous lectures, we discussed the self-image on a regular basis. And just a reminder of what the self-image is. It's one part of the two other mental processes. You have your conscious mind, you have your subconscious mind, and then you have your self-image, which is underneath. It's kind of like a triad. And the self-image is your area of comfort that you like to operate in. It's the sum of your habits and your attitudes, okay? And so what's interesting is that when you get outside your area of comfort, the self-image reminds us and it pulls us back. That's the crazy piece. So what does that look like? So for example, if a basketball player averages 20 points, in a game, plus or minus 20 points, and in one of the games, in the first half, he scores 20 points in the first half, like a personal best, right? The guy's on fire. The second half comes around, and he can't make a basket. We've seen stuff like that happen. And he's in the huddle, and the coach is asking him, hey man, what's wrong, man? Keep shooting. You were on fire in the first half, and now all of a sudden you're cold as ice. And the player replies, Coach, I'm trying as hard as I can. They just won't go in. We've seen this. That is what is called a self-image correction. Okay? And because it's not like him to score, more than 20, or to even have attempt to score 20 in the second half. Because his self-image is pulling him back to where his area of comfort is. Self-image is already saying, hey man, you've already scored 20. You knocked it out of the park, but that's it. It's as far as we're going to go. What's crazy is the self-image actually controls your skill set. That was a piece that I didn't know. I didn't really understand until I got to the Olympic level. So for example on the golf side, so let's say that you're a 75 shooter, right? And you're coming down the stretch, and let's say you're a couple under par. And it's not like you to shoot under par, and you've got 4 holes left and you're 2 under par. Self-image is saying, man, this is a great round and everything at being 2 under par, but it's not like you to shoot 2 under par. You're going to figure out how to shoot 75. You're going to throw a couple doubles in there, some 3 putts. You're not going to get up and down. Next thing you know, you make a putt on the last hole, you tap in for 75. Why? Because the self-image is saying it's unrealistic about you doing this because of where the self-image is. The self-image resists changing, and sometimes you can hear the self-image talking to you. For example, when your alarm clock goes off early in the morning, right? You hear, you're tired, don't get up. Let's stay in bed a little longer, right? Let's snooze that sucker for another 7 minutes, right? Hey, I'm guilty of it, right? So when we talk about the self-image, we know that it's, seriously, wanting to hold off on change. And it's a part of, your inner self that lets you know who you really are, okay? It tells you things like what makes you think you are going to win, or in the basketball player, that we were talking about, it's like, man, it's not like you to do this, right? It makes you think you're going to keep making shots in the second half. You're thinking you're going to make these in the second half, but the self-image is saying, it ain't going to happen, dude. It's not going to happen. It's a part of your inner self, and again, it lets you really know who you are, right? Okay, the self-image is always changing, and it can direct the change. You can direct the change, or you can simply let the environment change for you. Okay, if you're proactive about controlling the direction, of your life, then you must control the way that you think. Okay, so what's important here is to understand is that we control what we think of. And I have athletes ask me all the time, is that, Coach, how do I really get better with my mindset piece? And I always say, the best thing for you to do is to stop thinking. And they look at me like I have 3 heads. And they're like, stop thinking? And I'm like, yeah, stop thinking and learn to control your thoughts. And that's an important piece. And if you're consciously controlling your thoughts all the time, you've got a chance to grow your self-image. And we're gonna talk about that. So every time, so for example is that every time you think about an error that you're making, you move to make it like you to make that error. And every time you think about a solution to a problem, it becomes like you to solve it. It's like, okay, if you hit a golf shot and the shot doesn't quite go where you want it to go, and you know what the solution is, you start imprinting that solution, it's going to be like you to make that correction in the heat of the battle. But if you react and throw a tantrum and complain and piss and moan about it, it's going to be like you to do that again. So here's an interesting action statement that I recommend that you use, and it's from my good friend Coach Lanny Basham, Olympic gold medalist, world record holder, and spent years with him in training. And he says, I'm responsible for changing my self-image. You actually have control of this. This is what you have control of. You don't have control of the outcome. So stop trying to change the outcome. You have control of your self-image. So I'm responsible for changing my self-image. I choose the habits and the attitudes I want and cause my self-image to change accordingly. I choose the habits and the attitudes. Again, it's the sum of your habits and your attitudes. These are the habits and the attitudes that I want, and I cause my self-image to change accordingly. Okay, so what does that look like? So concentration is nothing more than the control of one's mental picture. Okay, and remember, the self-image, with all its power, moves you to do whatever the conscious mind programs. So let me talk about that again. So your conscious mind is what you see, it's what you think, it's how you perceive things. And so like on a golf shot, right? You walk up to a golf shot and you walk up to it, you do the lie, the yardage, the conditions, and you build that strategy and you see that strategy. You consciously see it, right? And you're like, yeah, I'm committing to this strategy. This is the club that I'm going to use for this strategy. It's a 7-iron. Subconsciously, I've hit this shot a million times. It's a slight draw into the hole. And so I don't have any issue from a skill set standpoint, but consciously, I see the shot, okay? The self-image pictures what the conscious mind sees. And if it sees it if it sees it consciously, you see it. Subconsciously, you've hit the shot a million times. And then down here's the self-image. Self-image is like, yep, it's like you to do this. You execute the shot. That's performance. Okay? So again, remember, the self-image, with all its power, moves you to do whatever the conscious mind programs, what it sees. And if you can control the picture, okay? If you can control the picture, you can control performance. Our conscious mind picture is formed from what you think about, what you talk about, and what you write about, okay? It's reinforced by the self-image. And the self-image is the sum of your habits and your attitudes. So your thoughts have got to be right. They've got to be spot on. You've got to be reinforcing the right information all the time. So here's the most important principle that you'll ever need to remember, is that it's called the principle of reinforcement. So what you're consciously thinking about, you need to be reinforcing to your self-image. Because your self-image is either going to grow, it's going to shrink. And so the principle reinforcement states is what you think about, what you talk about, and what you write about improves the probability of that thing happening, good or bad. So let me repeat that again. What you think about, what you talk about, and what you write about improves the probability of that thing happening, good or bad. So every time we think about something, we improve the probability that it will happen. Now we've got to be careful what we think about and what you picture. You know, every time you worry, you improve the probability that what you're worrying about will happen. If you're worrying about scoring bad on an exam, you're imprinting that, or you're imprinting like you to score badly, your self-image is going to pull you in that direction with all its power. It will do it. It will move you to make that imprint true. It's like, okay, now we talked about the performance, consciously seeing the shot, subconsciously I've hit it a million times. Self-image pictures what the conscious mind sees. So I walk up to a shot and the wind's blowing left to right. And I draw the ball and the lie's above my feet, which is going to move the ball further left. And I'm not sure how much it's going to move. I'm not really sure at all. And I really can't commit to it. And it's like, man, I'm not really sure what this is going to do. If I can't consciously see that, the self-image is not going to give me the imprint. But we go ahead and hit the shot anyway, and we hope it has an outcome. We probably do that more times than not in a round of golf. Why? Because out of the triad, out of the conscious, the subconscious, and the self-image is always the smallest. It's always the smallest. Why? Because it lags behind. It lags behind because we take all of our time building up our subconscious skill, and building up these skills, we forget about our self-image. We just leave it behind. And we can't do that. We can't expect for our performance to change if we don't grow the most important piece of our mindset, which is our self-image. Because it makes us act like us. And if you want to become a 75 shooter, then you're going to have to start thinking like a 75 shooter. You're going to have to start imprinting all the things that a 75 shooter does. And you don't think any other way. And more importantly, you have to learn how to train like that. But if you start imprinting, negative thoughts and worrying about the outcome and how bad it's going to be, you're going to be in trouble. If you're worrying about scoring bad on an exam, there's probably a chance there's probability you're probably going to score bad on it. It's not what you want, but it is what you will get if you continue to think this way. If you continue to think in the negative way, you're going to continue down that path. That's the bottom line. But if you continue in the positive way, in reinforcing the things that you want to accomplish and the things that you're working on and putting solutions, what we've got a picture is we want a picture of us scoring well. That's what we want. We want to picture that. We want to rehearse that. And we talk about that all the time, rehearsing our competition. But the first thing is before we even get to rehearsing our competition, we got to get to imprinting, all the time. We talk about it. There's three types of imprints. You got actual imprint. You've got environmental imprint, and you've got imagined imprints. Actual imprint is you actually performing the shot. You hit a great shot, it grows a self-image. You hit a bad shot, I use the term it needs work because it does need work. What needs work in it? And then you have to go through the 6 step of performing, but if it needs work, what solutions does it need? Okay? So that's actually you hitting a shot. Then you have the imagined piece. Okay? Believe it or not, people imagine themselves playing bad or playing poorly. That's a challenge. They imagine themselves, making bogeys and bogeys and bogeys off the front nine, or getting off to a slow start in a basketball game, or off to a slow start in a football game or soccer game or lacrosse. You're going to do what you picture. Okay? And we got to also be careful. Here's another piece too. We've got to also be careful what we talk about. All right? And the important rule is we don't ever mention or talk about what we don't want. I had the opportunity to, I have the opportunity to spend a lot of time down in New Orleans with the Saints and Sean Payton. and was talking with Aaron Glenn and about him and his defensive backs, and we were out. He made the mistake one day, but it wasn't intentional. It wasn't his intent. Marcus Williams had a chance to catch the ball, and as an interception, and he dropped it. And Aaron's like, "Man, don't drop the ball." And I start laughing. And he looks at me, and he's like, "What are you laughing at?" And I'm like, you just told him what you just told him exactly what you didn't want him to do." And I had to repeat that. I said, "Yeah, you told him what you didn't want him to do." So what we call the principle of picture. He's picturing what you're saying. If you say don't drop the ball, he's picturing dropping the ball. And he's like, "Well, I know it's not their intent." And we do it all the time. With parents, we do this all the time. We're reinforcing all the negative things. "Man, why'd you make bogey out there on that hole? Why'd you three-putt that last hole?" They're not trying to three-putt it. They're not trying to make bogey. And for God's sakes, you don't need to reinforce what they did wrong. It's as parents and coaches, it's a huge negative imprint. So what should Aaron say to Marcus? "Dude, get your hands on it. You can catch it. It's like you to do that, man." That's what needs to be said. You need to say what you want them to do, not what you don't want them to do. We got to be careful of what we talk about. I've seen this happen hundreds of times, okay? So a couple golfers get together after a tournament, right? Okay, golfer A asks golfer B, "How'd you do?" Golfer B says, "Man, I did terrible. I bogeyed the last 5 holes to shoot even par. I was under par, and I had a chance to get it home, and I couldn't do it. I three-putted 3 of the last 5 greens. I couldn't get up and down on the other 2. My short game sucks." How many times have we heard that? Golfer B has just improved the probability of having bogeys, 3 putts, and a horrible short game in the future just because he's thinking and talking about his mistakes. He's imprinting that into his self-image. And he doesn't even know he's making these kind of mistakes. Here's the sad piece, is that because golfer A is listening, and he's also improving the chance that he will have golfer B's problems in the future just by hearing it and listening to it. That's what's crazy. You've got to be careful who you listen to. And don't spend time listening to people's problems or others' people's problems or players that you play with, right? So when we talk about I forgot to talk about the environmental imprint. We talked about the actual imprint, the imagined imprint. In the environmental imprint, that's what's going on in the environment. That's people that you play with. That's people that you train with. That's your coaches. That's your parents. They're watching competition. Your friends. All of them give you imprints, just like this right here with golfer A and golfer B. Golfer A happens to be listening to all the problems that golfer B is having. You gotta move away from it. You really do, because it's gonna bring you down. What's interesting, I hear this all the time, like with high school golfers, right? And even in college, right? Especially in college, you finish the event, and it doesn't matter what event it is. It doesn't matter what sport it is. They're all on the bus, and they're talking about how bad they did. They talk about, "Oh my gosh, I hit 3 balls in the water today. I had 7 3-putts. I hit 4 balls out of bounds. I couldn't get up and down." And I mean, they're just vomiting on themselves over and over again. I mean, just profusively, it's coming out. And you hear it, and everybody's chiming in. Everybody's trying to outdo the other person on how bad they did. And then after a while, they get it all out of their system. And then all of a sudden, someone perks up and says, on Number 13, I hit driver, flip wedge. I had 30 yards to the green. The other one goes, oh yeah, well I drove it up on the fringe. And then you hear another, oh yeah, well I drove the green. Well what'd you do on 2? Well on 2, I hit this and this and this, and I knocked it this close. Now all of a sudden, the tables have turned. And now everybody's trying to outdo themselves, talking about everything that they did well. And they spend all of this time on the first piece just beating up the self-image and just shrinking it and beating it up. But here's the deal. It's the 80-20 rule. 80% of what they talk about is bad. And only 20% of what they talk about is good. And we got to get that flipped around, you know? And it's crazy. You'll see this many times in an interview with an athlete and a media person. They just finished their round, and the media person's trying so hard to draw out all the negative information on why they failed that day, or why they failed coming down the stretch, or why they had a poor performance in the second half of the game. And the ultra athletes, they're not going there. It is just everything that they're asking is going right over their head immediately. They'll deter it. They'll talk about what they did well. They talked about what they learned. They talked about the solutions. They talked about the plan of the solutions and how they plan on implementing them. And the media personnel really don't even have a response. They're like, oh, thanks, man. I don't, because they're conditioned to ask all the negative stuff. But these ultra elite athletes, you watch it in the Olympics, I find it interesting to watch a lot of football now because I'm in that space as well. And so I see a lot of things that people don't see, and I hear a lot of things that people don't hear. And I watch how these coaches talk. I watch how the players talk. I listen to what they're imprinting. So like with the Patriots and Bill Belichick, he kind of just mutters his words, right? He's not giving out any information. And I'll tell you a quick story. This is really interesting. I was up doing a consult for Dartmouth University. And I'm in Patriots country, right? And so when I landed in the airport, I got my rental car and I turned it on Sports Talk Radio. I want to hear what was going on. Well, this was a season before last when supposedly Tom Brady had hurt his thumb, okay? And nobody's talking about it. Bill Belichick is not even recognizing it in his press conferences. He's not even going there. So they get some athletes on the phone. These guys are running this talk show, and they're asking me, like they had Edelman on, said, hey, Edelman, did you see Brady today? What did he look like? And Edelman's like, man, I saw him. He looks great, man. The guy's a good-looking guy, but he's not even going there. And he's being sarcastic with him, but he's not even going there. It's like, man, how was his thumb? His hand looked great, man. His thumb was still there. Everything was good. I find it quite comical because they're not even going there, right? Now, here's another twist, okay? So Mike Tomlin, who used to coach at the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Every time Mike Tomlin would do a press conference after a game, the first thing that he would go to was the injury report. And it couldn't be the worst. It was the worst thing that he could possibly go to, because he's talking about what's wrong with the team, how they're hurt, how the player's out, how it's going to affect the team. I mean, he is shrinking the self-image of that team and that player faster than you can blink an eye. And he has no idea that he's doing that. And on the other hand, Belichick won't even budge it. And, my good friend Sean Payton, who's at the Saints, he won't even go there. He's like, yeah, there might be something, but, everybody's going to be all right. He won't even go there. Well, we got to evaluate the situation. He's not even going to go that direction at all to get any negative imprint towards the self-image of the team and the player. So it's critical. What you think about, what you talk about, and what you write about improves the probability of that thing happening, good or bad. Okay? So one of the key tools that we use with our athletes in managing these imprints in growing your self-image is what is called our performance analysis. Okay? And it's actually a performance journal. I got one right here. And so it's real simple. It's, the bulk of the pages are, it kind of reads like this. It's like, okay, what's the event, which would be the day, were you training or were you competing? What's the location? What are the conditions, right? It's important to know the conditions, the exact conditions, especially if you're training outside, okay? What's the plan for the day? List out everything that you're going to do that day. All right. If it's competition, we've got area here for competition to set your performance goals and your outcome goal. Okay. And the percentage of time that you run your mindset program and the percentage of time that you operate technically. And what I did today and what I learned. Okay. This keeps the athlete on focus. Okay. All right. And I believe, the primary reason, people don't keep a record in a performance journal is they've never been taught how to do it. They really don't have a good reason, and no one's ever showed them how. And I believe that there's three reasons why you should. And why, first, is because you can't manage if you don't measure. And your day has been defined, it's been measured, and it's been timed, and you need to reinforce everything in the journal here so that you're reinforcing everything that you did. So when you talk about what I did today and what I learned, I want specifics, okay? And I'm looking for a solution to improve all right? And, okay, what solutions are you looking for, okay? And why do you need to improve these solutions? Well, if I improve these solutions, it's going to allow me to do this. Okay, so we're imprinting all the things that the athlete is doing that day. So the first is, we've got to teach the athletes why to do it. Secondly, man, if you're not managing and what you're measuring, I can't coach the individual without a performance journal. And if you're a coach, you should demand it from your athletes. Why? Because without one, you're wasting a lot of time when you try to coach someone. So if I haven't seen an athlete for a few days and they're in training, I can reach over and unzip their bag and pull their performance analysis out, immediately open it up, and look what they did the last couple days. It tells me everything they did. So like in our onboarding program that we coach these athletes from all around the world, right? At the end of every training session, or at the end of playing, at the end of qualifying, or in a competition, they're completing this. And then they take a snapshot of it and they upload it to their training space. I get pinged, I get to read it. And I get to help them manage these imprints and help them stay on track. So, once they, why do I need to improve this? And then the next is what specific areas did I train in today? And why did I train in these areas? What impact is it going to have? And the athlete lists out all the areas, the details of what they did in our training. And they follow our Olympic training model. And then the next step is they write about what you did well. This is the only place that the athlete has the opportunity to brag about themselves. And I want it in full color. I want them to write everything that they did in great detail. Not, I hit a great shot, or I threw a great pass, or, I want the details. I want you broadcasting it to me in full color. For example, in the 14th hole, man, the wind was blowing across from right to left, 40 miles an hour. I had to build a strategy to hit the ball down the right side, up over the trees, and draw it back to the fairway. And I built the strategy. I committed to it. I rehearsed it. I ran my mindset program, and I executed it up over the trees and back to the middle of the fairway. It was one of my best drives today, and I had 7-iron into the green. Okay, you can't beat that person. You start imprinting like that and you start writing about what you did well like that, and you have it. You have it to go back to, right? And the final one is the goal statement. You know, your goal statement's always written in present tense. And, you know, by referring to the PA, you know, how often they're training and how long and what they trained on, whether it's competition, what they worked on, what didn't work, what was the objective of their session and was it accomplished. I got it all right here. I got everything right here. And it's done. This is a part of an athlete's training, and it's done. It's the last segment of their training. It's not the end of their training, it's the last segment of their training. And when athletes don't do it, I won't. And finally, you know, if you're using a journal only to record information, you're not maximizing the use of a performance analysis, because what we're doing is, you know, I believe that the primary benefit of a performance analysis is to build their self-image. Imprinting both real and rehearsed training segments or competition, right? Every time we think about something, it's an imprint and it shapes our self-image. Every time we think about something, it imprints and it shapes our self-image. So here's the other thing too, is that we handwrite. And when you handwrite, it improves the probability of you remembering something by 30% more. And these are the game changers. And so I highly encourage you, if you're a coach, to use these. All of our coaches that we work with, their athletes use these. We just did an NCAA coaches workshop, and all of them came in and anteed them, got all new shipped to them, right? And it's a game changer. So I highly recommend it. There's going to be a link that you can order these. I believe they're $24 is what they are. They're roughly 160 pages, so they last a long time. They're moleskin. They're pretty cool. They've got a ribbon marker in here as well, and they're fantastic. So shoot me some questions if you got some questions about the PA. I'd be more than happy to field that for you. But this self-image is the game changer. It's the secret sauce to changing performance. And if you work on the self-image and you do the PA, the performance analysis, it's going to protect and it's going to insulate your self-image. And if you do that, you are going to change your performance forever. Rule of thumb, you do these for 30 days, you will never stop. And if you do it, send it to me. I'll take a look at it for you, and I'll help you with on the outset. Look, I've so enjoyed putting this broadcast together for you, and I hope you've enjoyed it just as much as I have. And you can join us here every Wednesday, or at least most Wednesdays. I always give a notification out on Facebook and let you know when we're doing them. 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. Hey, if you know anyone that could benefit from this broadcast, ping them, shoot it to them, let them watch it. We want to spread the word and help as many people as possible. Also, right now, if you're interested, we've got our private client group. We've opened it back up for our onboarding program for our collegiate athletes. We've just moved some athletes into the university space, and we've opened it up, and we've got some room to bring in some new athletes. So if you have an interest and want to have a discovery call, I would be more than happy to talk with you about your athlete or if it's your kid. You can reach me by email at Shawn, SHAWN, at Shawn Humphreys, Shawn at ShawnHumphreys.com, or hey, give me a call on my direct line. It's 972-793-7255. Here's another piece where we've kicked these off down at our training facilities in Palm Beach. We've got the 2-day college training camps. We just finished doing a couple of them. Man, they're incredible. Our facilities are unbelievable. We use our private training facility there at the First Tee. It's manicured like Augusta. And then we also get to use Palm Beach Atlantic University, which I help coach at. So the facilities are amazing. You can see this information on our website. Just click the icon that says training, and it will talk to you about all programs that we have down there. These camps are incredible. I'm getting ready to post a bunch of testimonials that we just had from the athletes as well. Listen, thank you for joining me, and I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I have, and we will see you next week.